Did you miss it as you were?
Originally, no. I thought it was the right time to step away. And you know, my wife and I have 4 kids, and really just stuck myself into family life, you know, and got back involved with youth athletics, and then worked my way back into it, coaching high school baseball, and the itch was still there, you know, and was very excited about the opportunity to get back into it, especially to come to Boston here and get the chance.
So I'm looking at the 1990 season, and I'm looking at the roster, starting roster, and there's a guy named Joe Oliver. Was that your big year?
You know, when you look at everything said and done, I would probably say to any athlete's dream is to win it all, and I'd have to say that was my best season as a team. You know, I had some personal seasons that were better, but the team didn't have successful years. So overall, that would definitely be the best year.
Baseball season, and he struck him out swinging, and the 1990 National League Championship belongs to the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds have done the absolute improbable by defeating the club considered to be the best in Major League Baseball, and they've done it in a 4-game series sweep.
So instrumental to my growth as a young player and a catcher. It means a lot to me, and I know every time I would see him on the bench and with the Texas Rangers and various other organizations, I would kind of spend a little more time trying to see where he was, and he took really good care of me and taught me a lot throughout my 3 years that I was with him. I wish I could have been around him a lot more, and he was very, very instrumental in my growth as a player.
You were drafted? Or was it out of high school?
Out of high school, yes. 2nd round.
Did you expect Cincinnati was looking at you? Did you know that?
You know, back then you didn't have the internet access. You didn't have MLB Network, and you didn't have that exposure that you have now. There's so many lists. There's so many tweets, and anywhere you can look at social media, you can find out about players, where they're projected to go. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had committed to go to the University of Georgia. It was an opportunity for me to play as a freshman. I had family in that area, and then when Cincinnati drafted me, I felt I was going to get drafted, but I didn't know I was going to be drafted that high. Mm-hmm. And I had no intention of turning professional out of high school. I mean, I had told Steve Weber was the University of Georgia's coach, and I told him I'm coming. I don't care where they draft me. I'm coming to Georgia. And got popped in the 2nd round, and they offered me the money, and here I am.
Who'd you talk to about all this? Did your mom and dad kind of
My dad counseled me on it, you know, and it was very naive, you know, about the whole process. I think everybody was. Back then, you really didn't deal with too many agents unless you were a 1st round pick or you know, going really high in the draft, and you know, it was a learning process for sure.
Did they think you were the next Johnny Bench when they looked at your size? You looked at your.
You know, it's always been something I've tried to stay away from any type of comparison, even when I was 17 years old coming out of Boone High School. Those are impossible shoes to fill,
right.
You know, and I would never want to have ever wanted that expectations thrown on me. You know, people kept throwing that at me, and it's just not attainable. And I wanted to be the best Joe Oliver that I could be out there, and not the next Johnny Bench, you know. And I was proud that I got the opportunity to play there for quite some time, and to win a World Series in Cincinnati, to win an MVP, team MVP there, it's pretty special. And to know that my name's somewhere on that list as quality catchers that caught with the organization.
Joe Oliver. Getting his biggest taste of the majors yet, Oliver handled the catching chores like a pro right off the gridiron. This team had all the bases covered.
Talking about on the list, the starting lineup, Todd Benzinger. You're
Yep.
smiling.
Yep.
Was he a character?
Definitely, and he stayed in the Cincinnati area, and I want to say he's a high school girls basketball coach now. So I just saw him with in the off season with the Reds fantasy camp. So hadn't seen him in quite some time.
Mariano Duncan.
Mariano, what a player! I know he's involved with the Dodgers organization. Mariano slam dunking. I mean, the guy was a big-time ball player for us. He got some big hits and made some big plays.
Barry Larkin, was he Hall of Fame character at the time?
Barry is probably one of the most down-to-earth people you'll come across. I had Barry on my right-hand side and Eric Davis on my left-hand side. And you knew Barry was going to strive to great things. And for 19 years staying with one organization, what a phenomenal feat that is. And the way that he played and carried himself with class, no issues, and treated each and every teammate the same.
Chris Sabo. I just visualize him with those crazy glasses.
Well, Spuds, I still stay in touch with Spuds. He's a golf coach in Cincinnati, girls golf coach at UC. And Chris is part of the reason why I got back into it. He kept, I don't want to say pushing me, but encouraging me, that I would be a good manager. And probably have grown closer to him after baseball than when we were teammates. He's just a little different, he was very focused and had his goals set on what he wanted to do. But we were drafted together, and proud that I was his teammate.
Then you go in the outfield, Billy Hatcher.
Boy, Hatch, first base coach in Cincinnati, and he was one of our catalysts. A guy that was a very good barometer for us in the clubhouse and on the field. We went as he went, and played hard, really did, and he got us going. He kept us loose.
Eric Davis.
Eric seemed to always come up in a big moment.
Not a big guy.
No, 6'2", 6'1", 6'2", oh my goodness, 185 pounds with glove and cleats and all the wristbands and jewelry on.
You had a lot of that.
Maybe 180 pounds.
Yeah.
But he was a guy that could take the game over offensively, defensively, running the bases, taking the extra base, throwing guys out. What an unbelievable talent.
And Paul O'Neill?
And Paul, Paul, probably the best thing that happened for Paul was being traded to the Yankees, because it probably turned into maybe a potential Hall of Fame career, in New York. But Paul was another one of the guys that came up around my time, and the way he came up with big hits for us and played right field, throwing Vance Slyke out at third base against the Pirates in the NLCS. I mean, that was just such a special club that everybody seemed to have big moments.
You had a big moment during the World Series, Game 2. Talk about that.
I had an opportunity in the 8th inning off a Rick Honeycutt and to drive in to go ahead and run, and I failed at it, and was just hoping I was going to get another chance throughout the game. And walking up to the plate and seeing Dennis Eckersley out on the mound is pretty intimidating. He had a perfect season. I believe he had 4 walks the whole year, and knowing that we had 2 guys on, Bates and Sabo got on, and I didn't know what to expect. I'd never faced him before, just seen him on TV, and was very fortunate that I had a backup slider that came in. I mean, I didn't hit it hard by any means, but I topped it right down the third base line, and seeing the ball, it seemed like it was in slow motion, tumbling through the air, and just seeing the ball coming down, hitting half fair and half foul, and seeing Randy Marsh pointing fair, and hearing the stadium erupt.
4-4. The game moved into extra innings. The Reds now had to face Dennis Eckersley, coming off 4 straight postseason performances without a run. With 1 out, Cincinnati got 2 straight hits, and with 2 on, the Reds were looking for a hero.
And the batter is Joe Oliver. He made the last out in the 8th inning and left 2 on. That ball is fair! Cincinnati's ahead, 2 games to none.
I lived that fantasy that every kid has played in their backyard or front yard, having a game-winning hit, you know. And if that was my crescendo of my career, I'll take it. You know, every time since I go back to Cincinnati, somebody always tells me where they were in Game 2 in the 10th inning.
Isn't that terrific?
It's awesome. You know, it really is. And I'm very fortunate that I got that opportunity.
You go on YouTube every once in a while and type in Joe Oliver?
Yeah, I have to say I do. And getting back into to managing and coaching guys that most of them weren't even alive when I did that. Practically, I think just about all these guys, maybe a few of them were alive when I did it, but having to say, you know, tell them to get on their smartphones, take a look, you know. So it's pretty cool.
I always find that interesting. You got guys that are 18, 19, 20 years old. Do they even know much about you?
No. And I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
They know that I have a major league history, and if they want to look it up, I'm going to be the same way whether they know who I am or I'm not. I mean, I'm me. I'm not any different than anybody else who's played baseball or not played baseball. I mean, I was very fortunate that I got to play it for 19 years overall and 12 and a half years in the big leagues. And I'm just trying to give something back to these young guys, and hopefully a couple of them will be able to retain it and take it to the highest level.
Big trade that year was for Randy Myers.
Yes.
Did you appreciate at the time his speed, his...
I didn't know anything about Randy. I had no idea. I had come up in '89, and I think at that point we were done playing the Mets, or if we played the Mets, I think we played him. I didn't get to face him, so I didn't see him, and I didn't know much about him because John Franco was our guy.
Right.
And but once he came over, you could start to sense that our bullpen was something special.
Right.
Not taking anything away from John Franco, but you know, we added a left-hander that's throwing mid-90s.
The Nasty Boys. In fact, I think the Oakland Athletics, going into the World Series, they were deemed a dynasty, and then subsequently you were referred to as the Nasty.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk about those 3 guys.
Each one of them were closers, or could be closers with anybody. They had closer mentality, closer stuff. Ball games were over if we had the lead after the 6th inning. The starting pitchers could really pace themselves for 6 innings, or even 7 if need be. You have 2 left-handers that are throwing with Norm Charlton and Randy Myers throwing in the mid-90s with knockout stuff, and then Rob Dibble throwing, you know, upper 90s to 100 on the right side. They weren't intimidated by the situation or who they were facing, and it was the exact opposite. The hitters, you could see the hitters' body language dreading coming to the plate. The confidence that they had in the situation was unbelievable. When you're going through it, you don't really recognize it as much until it happens for quite some time. But you know, after that All-Star break, you start believing we've got something here. These guys are shut down arms, and we knew if we could get into the later part of the ball game with the lead, it was over. And that takes a lot of pressure off of you as an offense. Mm-hmm. And knowing that you can just put a few runs up on the board, and then the starters can turn it over and game's over.
In fact, I was just looking at the Pirates series there for the National League. Every one of them was almost everyone was a one-run game.
I firmly believe that if the Pirates would have beaten us, it would have been the exact same thing. I think the Pirates would have won the World Series. Knowing that both clubs were pretty even, us and the Pirates, and we had knocked down dragouts all year long. I mean, we played each other hard, and if Glenn Braggs doesn't make that catch off of Carmelo Martinez in right field, we could be talking about a whole different situation.
Martinez again to right field. He only hit a ball to right field earlier. And watch Greggs go up at least to the yellow line. That ball's a home run. That ball is a home run, I believe, had he not been there.
You're right. It would have been. And the crowd saw the replay. That's the noise they're making. And the Reds are 1 out away from the National League pennant.
1990 World Series game, I think it might have been Game 3, where Tom Browning's wife was giving birth and she left.
It was the Game 2.
Game 2?
Game 2. We went into extra innings, and Piniella was asking Stan Williams where Browning was, because he might have to go ahead and be bumped up and throw, because he didn't want to kill the bullpen. He would rather take the starter and use him, and then maybe bring the starter back later in the series. And Williams can't find him, and Lou's freaking out. What do you mean you can't find him? You know, and our clubhouse guy Rick Stowe came up and told him that his wife went to labor and Tom took off. Well, Tom didn't tell anybody. You know, he had just left. So we really had no plan of who was going to pitch if we went 11, 12, 13 innings. So it was pretty fortunate, I guess, that I did come up with that hit. I mean, because Browning was watching it in the hospital as the game ended and heard the plea from Marty Brenneman and Joe Nuxall about coming back. So,
How about Marge Schott?
Well, Mrs. Schott was definitely a different person. She took care of us on the field. She did some quirky things, no doubt. You know, she paid the guys. I mean, I can't complain. At that point in time, we had a pretty good payroll. But she would say things that always would seem to come back and haunt her. Somebody put a mic in front of her mouth, she would always put her foot in her mouth. You know, she did a lot for the area in Cincinnati as far as charities. She really did have a caring heart for kids. But it just seemed like she just was a product of the older generation, and it got the best of her.
It says the 1990 World Series would be the Reds' 5th championship, but also be remembered as one of the biggest upsets in baseball history. Do you believe that?
I believe it was a big upset, and I don't have any problem if it was the biggest upset of all time. I'd be proud to carry that flag and banner, because I got a World Series ring, and that's why they play the games out. You never know what happens when that guy throws the first pitch. And it's something that if you as a player start buying into all the hype that the media makes out about the games and making the players better than what they truly are, you know, that instills fear, and you just have to play the game. You know, and I'm sure when those guys really sit back, the A's look back and they start looking at our team that we had. We didn't have the household names that they had at that point in time, but they could sit back and tell you we had a solid team, up and down the lineup and on the bench, definitely on the mound.
In fact, the named player that you had was let go midway through the season, Ken Griffey Sr. Mm-hmm. Was that hard for Ken Griffey? I mean, this is sort of the end of a period. You know,
it was really, we were all in shock because he was our father figure, you know. Came into spring training, turned 40 years old that year, and he was somebody that took me under his wing in 1989 and taught me a lot about being a bench and role player. And to see him be let go was tough. It really was, because he was a part of that clubhouse. And I'm happy that he got his moment that he got to be able to play with Junior, and that probably made it worthwhile. I mean, who else can say that? Right. It was pretty special.
There was a time when the Reds let you go. Was that hard?
It hurt. It really did. I'd been a Red my whole life and worked my way up through the ranks, and it was just a financial decision they had to come across. And I worked my way back, and then they decided not to offer me another deal after I was being told they were going to give me one. Yeah. But baseball, nothing's for sure. You know, that's why there are 30 teams. somebody, if you can still play, somebody's going to give you an opportunity. And I was very fortunate. I've got other clubs that thought the same thing and gave me chances. But, you know, in my heart, I'm a Cincinnati Red. I mean, when you come up through the organization and you win a World Series title, there's a part of you that always stays with that team.
Were you with the Tigers when Sparky was there?
No, I wasn't. It was Buddy Bell.
Buddy Bell?
Yep. But I went back to Seattle after that to play with Lou, you know, twice.
Right.
So, you know, I give Lou as much credit as anybody for taking care of me and making me a Major League Baseball player the way that I am, and bits and pieces of me manage the way he does as well.
Funniest thing that happened to Joe Oliver was this.
Oh my goodness, boy.
Maybe the funniest thing you saw, something that.
Well, I mean, I think of something in between innings, and it was actually in Cincinnati playing Atlanta. In between innings, threw the ball down to second base, and my cleat caught my shoelace and went face first in front of 50,000 people. You know, just spread eagle.
Yeah.
And I rolled over, looking at the visiting clubhouse or visiting dugout, and Bobby Cox was just sitting there dying laughing. You know, just stupid little things like that.
Yeah. Well, you guys are tremendous storytellers. I mean, baseball players just, because you have time like this.
Well, we embellish a lot.
There's always a kernel of truth. Who was the storyteller? The kind of guy during a rain delay like today you'd cozy up to because you couldn't believe either what they would do, what they were saying?
Norm Charlton. He always seemed to have some type of hunting story or just something along the lines. John Smiley could do it, you know, a little bit in my later years in Cincinnati. Billy Hatcher always had stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've got a great story. This is terrific. As you project out 5 years from now, where would Joe Oliver like to be?
My goal is to manage in the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my goal is not changing any different than when I was a player.
Right.
That's where I want to be. I want to improve each year. I want to be able to have the opportunity to build a relationship with players at the lower levels. I feel like getting back because I've been out of it for quite some time.
Right.
And I would love to be able to build that relationship and understand what the younger players are all about. I mean, it is a different time. You know, with social media and the exposure these guys get, it's a whole different animal.
Right.
I mean, I can remember when I was 17 years old going to Billings, Montana, nobody knew who I was. But if there's a young kid that shows up in my locker room, there are people out here that know him, you know, better than I do, and I hadn't even met him yet just because they can read about everything.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of instruction from on high as to the players? I mean, you know, I only want X amount of pitches from this guy, and no matter what, does it really become a developmental league for you as opposed to a...
And that's fine. You know, down here, guys out of the draft in their first year in pro ball, and some of them got a couple of years in, but it's still kind of mandated, you know, playing time,
right.
How many pitches certain pitchers are able to throw, how many innings. It's pretty structured. And every once in a while you get a real opportunity to manage a game. Sometimes you just have to sit on your hands and let the kid learn, take the lumps.
Is that hard?
It is. It's tough. I mean, you really want to pull them out and control some damage. And sometimes they've got to sit there, and it's more important to have the reps.
Right.
They've got experiences, the good and the bad.
You've had some good, a lot of good, and some bad. Any regrets, Joe?
I can't think of anything. I mean, I love that I had the opportunity to step away from baseball and raise my family. Married to my wife for 28 years. She's seen the minor leagues, she's seen the big leagues, and she constantly says she's excited about the second chapter of going through the minor league ball with me. So my two youngest kids, I have a senior in high school and a junior in high school. I mean, that time we're going to be empty nesters here pretty soon, and she'll be able to follow me around.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty exciting.
You could stay in touch with a lot of your old Cincinnati Red guys?
I hear from a few here and there, and going through town to town, I'll run across a few that are close by. I know Rob Dibble's doing radio in Connecticut, and Sabo texts me from time to time. Hal Morris is with the Angels as a professional scout, in charge of that, scouting director. Tom Browning's a pitching coach. I mean, the guys are everywhere. Their marks are all over baseball.
Yeah. Lou Pinella's first year was 1990. Excited. Sometimes he seemed to, I don't want to say stoic, but maybe just from a spectator's perspective. But in the locker room, was he excitable?
Lou was very animated. But his first day in spring training, he came in and told us he didn't know anybody in the clubhouse, which is kind of as a player, exciting. You've got a fresh slate.
Yeah. You
create that image. You can create your own identity with somebody who hadn't had somebody trying to taint it. And Lou hated losing. Absolutely hated losing. He wanted effort if we were getting beat by 10 or winning by 10, and he had no problems saying what was on his mind, and he would think about it 10 minutes later and come out and apologize. But he'd kick you in the rear end but pick you up, and that was what I needed as a player to motivate me and keep me going. And I loved the opportunity that I got to play for him as long as I did.
He never got mad at you, did he?
Oh yeah. There wasn't anybody on the team that he didn't get mad at. I mean he would we butted heads quite a bit, but that was just Lou. Lou had a very strong opinion on the way games should be called or the way hitters should be swinging a bat, and if he felt like the guys weren't doing it his way, he'd let you know.
Did he call a lot of the game pitches?
No, he didn't call anything. No. But he would in between innings would give suggestions, or pregame give suggestions, and definitely told you who we weren't going to get beat by. And if you fell out of that plan, he'd let you know.
Who were some of the guys you really tried to work around during that time period?
You're looking at like Andre Dawson, Ryan Sandberg, Bonilla, Bonds. Goodness, it's been so long since I thought about some of those names from that era. You got to watch out for Ricky Henderson and McGuire and Canseco. That whole lineup in Oakland was a threat. But that's what made you better as a pitcher or as a catcher or whatever, is being able to stick to a plan and execute the plan.
Well, this is the plan of working, and you and I having a chance to chat has worked out so well. I'm sorry for the rain delay, but thank you for being a good sport and letting me have some special time with you, Joe.
My pleasure.
Well, good luck, and thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Terrific.
All right.